put that at the end and just...
Well, the minutes are all in different formats, and it's got shortcuts in them that I'm not sure are going to be recognized later on. So I guess I'll volunteer to edit them and resubmit them. I don't have, I mean, as far as what the content is, I don't have any issue with that. It's just I just think we should have a standardized format. So I'll do that. Okay.
No, we can't vote on them until we have one, right?
Right.
So, but we can still meet and talk about.
We can still meet and talk about everything else. We just can't make a decision.
Right. Okay.
I forgot to, actually, I did print it out. I just forgot to take it off the printer before I came here, the agenda for tonight. I think Bill was up next on the RFS, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was the same, a similar to last week. So do you want me to give an update on the RFS? I can kind of follow up what we said last week. So last week we talked a little bit about where the RFS was at. The original one, we rejected all bids, and we notified all the bidders. There were 3 bidders that we rejected the bids, and we were going to resubmit, and we asked if they would be willing to speak with us and advise us a little bit and get some feedback on what they saw with our original RFP, or RFS. So we had a conference call with Bob, Mark, and myself, had a conference call with WXY, MAPC, as well as NESDEC, thank you. I can't remember all the acronyms. So we were able to, we spoke with each one of them for about a half hour, and the general consensus was that we were way too detailed, and we should be more asking generally what we want and let them provide a service that, you know, kind of fits within their box. So we've worked over the past week or so, we've come up with a draft for a new proposal. I think our goal would be to meet either tomorrow or Friday, try to hammer down a few small items on it and get it out either by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. And then we'd have a proposal out. The goal would be that this would fall in that 10,000 range, if not a little under, which brings us well beyond the threshold of any type of 30B requirements in the state. A proposal request is perfectly valid as long as the state requires that we at least solicit 3 bids. Whether we get 3 isn't of consequence, that we need to at least solicit, which we have, I think, 4 in the queue right now that we're going to go out to. And we can actively work with those bidders and adjust the quotes, and you know, we can be competitive with them and go back and forth. So that's all open game as far as this proposal process goes.
So you're inviting 3 to 4 people to bid? Is it going to go out for general bid?
It's not going out for general bid, no.
So it's invites only?
It's just like you would go out and we're soliciting quotations. Like you would go out if you're looking for a plumber to do woodwork on your house.
Would it hurt to post it on that state thing again, or did that slow the whole thing down, or?
It takes 2 weeks usually for the posting to come out on there, and then we usually keep it posted for a week or so. I could take a look and see when their next release date is.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt, but we do have to, when we put it on there, we do have to give some time to allow people to see it. And
Okay. The first time you had submitted it through there.
Yes, the first.
And these are the 3 bidders that were responsive to the original posting.
Yes.
2 letters of no thanks.
With some, I mean, I guess based on kind of their opinion of the, you know, the request, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
So it wasn't of any interest, just the way it was worded, they weren't interested.
Right. So DCAM is an option to put it on there.
Okay, let's
That's it, but we can talk about that.
Investigate that.
I'll find out when the next release date is.
May or may not work.
So DCAM and Central Register are the same thing?
Yes, yeah. So that's where we are right now with the RFS.
So you guys, but are you guys definitely meeting tomorrow?
Well, we could.
I haven't quite sorted it out, but I think I can meet.
Bill's I'm tied up from, let's say 11:30 to 1:30. But I could meet before or after that.
I can manage that.
What time do you want to do this then?
Do you want to do 2 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay.
Now, is whatever you guys come up with, is that what's going out? Or does it come back here for review? I mean, I just want to make sure.
I think we said it would go up.
It's just going to go out. Okay.
Does going through DCAM trigger any additional requirements as far as how many bids you have to receive or who you have to award it to?
No, it's just more informational at that point.
Posting requirements though, right? It has to be up there for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it made the way responsive.
Okay, so tomorrow at 2.
Yeah.
Okay, and just to clarify, when you guys finish with, when you come up with a recommendation, the recommendation is getting shot up to the school committee before it is awarded, right?
Well, I think the recommendations would first come here,
Well, yeah.
Yes.
and then we could decide, and then,
Yes.
Okay, but nothing gets awarded until the school committee checks it out.
Right, we don't have the authority to award anything that I'm aware of.
okay, any questions on the RFS?
Can we tell at all whether newspaper advertisements were productive of the people who came, or that they just came through the central register? Do we have any clue?
No, we really don't, but usually I find the newspaper is
Not
kind of
productive.
it's really an antiquated
Right.
approach. You know, your website and,
Right.
you know, there's newspaper and there's posting on your bulletin board outside of the office,
Right.
which again is not many people.
Legal formality.
They're legal formalities that have kind of been in the system, and they're really your central register and posting on your website is,
So are we posting on the website?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I would still put this on the website, just like we normally would with a regular bid, just so if people want to see it, it's there. Okay. You know, we can,
You're next.
Oh, what's the time frame for, you think you guys are gonna post?
I'm sorry.
When do you think you guys are gonna be done?
I would like if we could nail something down by tomorrow, send things out on Friday. Worst case, first thing next week if we need a little more discussion.
Right. Thank you.
Talking about,
So modular?
so I think I may have mentioned before, the 2 portables that we have in place are being used every period of the day. We have math classrooms in there, so that's 14 sections of math that we're accommodating, which has helped tremendously. I was looking at the numbers as far as utilization. We're at about 92.4% utilization is the number that I get, but it's a little bit misleading in that depends on, there's differences between like science classroom utilization, general classroom utilization, computer lab utilization, band room, and all that sort of stuff. So I started breaking it out by different areas. If you look at the general classrooms, which are general use classrooms that are used for like math, social studies, English, foreign language, sometimes we'll have other things in there as well. That's sitting at about 93.5% utilization with the 2 portables. Science classrooms, 91.4% utilization. And then if you look at other things like computer labs, it's 85%, 85.7% utilization, but we actually, because we have like 1 period is total, or 2 periods are totally booked, we had to spill over into some general use labs, so it's probably a little bit higher than that. And then things like art rooms and like art rooms we're doing generally okay, although like our ceramics room is booked basically every period of the day. So the portables help tremendously. There are several periods when so I've got 2 periods during the day out of the 7-period day when there's 1 general use classroom available. I've got 1 period where there's no general use classroom available. There's 1 period where we happen to have 5. The way the schedule played out in the foreign language area, we ended up, a lot of the foreign language teachers didn't end up having a class scheduled. And we've got a couple periods. We've got a period where we've got 2 that are not scheduled, and we've got 3 that aren't scheduled. So the portables help tremendously. Had we not had the portables, I think that would have been entire streets.
So based on what you just said, would you say on average, each period you have about 2 general classrooms for use each period?
I can tell you exactly what it is.
But the point to make there is it's not always the same classroom.
Right. So there are 15 total classrooms available across 7 periods, so almost exactly 2 classrooms available, and it's not the same classroom. In fact, we have very few classrooms that are available, more than 1 period at any point in the day. It mixes around which ones are available. And we have many classrooms that are used every period of the day.
Sure.
In fact, the large majority of the classrooms are used every period of the day.
Do you think that's something you could make a 1-page memorandum so it can go up on the task force website? So
Absolutely.
point to
you put that on
a
the radar.
selectman saying, hey, this is the report from the principal, here are the statistics.
Yep, I have that on my list of things to do. So I've just got the raw numbers right now, and putting them in context, absolutely.
Would it be worth identifying that the difference also is in the 2 portables?
Right.
Like that, without it, it would have been quite a different story.
I'm very tight with that.
Yeah, another one. Could have had the footage. So, I don't recall, but the optimum, when the MSBA designs, the optimum they're looking for is 85%.
I believe MSBA, they build their spreadsheet around an 85% utilization.
But it's not per discipline, it's...
I'm not entirely certain. I'd have to go back and look at the way they did the spreadsheet. So I don't know if that's, I don't know.
Just for some reason 85 stuck in my head.
No, 85 is the right number, and Perry alluded to it, but, we came up with in our interim report, we said, here's the classrooms and 1 science lab that we need to get out of trouble. But I asked Perry to go back and figure out how many more classrooms would he need to get down to 85%.
But it's good to know that one's a science lab,
Right.
and then
Right.
general use is probably another 1.
Right.
But if you don't use the temporaries, you're talking about 2 more, so it's more like 3, right?
Well, I would, we know how many classrooms he has, including portables.
Yeah.
So I would just ask, my general question was just how many more incremental classrooms do you need to get down to 85%? And I don't remember if I put it in an email, but I think it should be broken up by general use or science labs or whatever other subdivision is appropriate.
And just curiosity, what would 2 more classes do for you?
So if we had, I ran the numbers really quickly, to get us to 85% utilization with the current number of classes that we have scheduled, we would need 3 more general use classrooms, assuming that nothing else changes, and we would need 1 more science lab.
Okay.
But you'd still have 100 students in the study period.
We would still have a significant
Okay.
number of students, yes.
Okay.
And I asked Jody to run the numbers for me on credits enrolled, and the large majority of the kids in the building are enrolled at 25 or more credits, which is the school committee policy. We do have a fair number of kids who are enrolled at 24 credits. Seniors comprise a large chunk of that. And in those situations, it's generally because it wasn't easy to sandwich another class in there. The class that they wanted was already full, and they weren't able, so I mean, we could try to sandwich some kids arbitrarily in beyond the 24, and we do end up sandwiching in to get them to at least 24. So with 24 credits means you've got 6 periods, both semesters, full. To go beyond that, then you're going into that 7th period and sticking something in there. It could be extra PE, it could be banking, which is 1 credit. But sometimes it can be difficult and very arbitrary to kind of sandwich that extra credit or 2. It's hard to do just a 1 credit, so usually then you go from 24 to 26. So we definitely do encounter issues with, if we want to get everybody above, 25 or above, everybody in the building, now you're talking about more classrooms, more teachers.
But how many credits do you need to graduate?
90 credits to graduate.
But at that rate,
That's the floor, though, that's not the ceiling. So yes, almost all of our students graduate with significantly more credits than the base requirement that they need to graduate.
Which is typical.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's,
Because you, as you said, 90 is the floor.
right, but what would you say the percentage of the floor is? What's the percentage of kids that just 90? That's it.
that graduate with just
Yeah.
90. I would say we probably have a handful of kids each
Okay.
year who graduate with just 90, because those kids are on our radar, because that means that they just made it by the skin of their teeth, and so they
Okay.
come on the cusp. So, if 25
So
is...
the issue is not that they're not taking classes, the issue is they're not passing the classes.
Correct. They're scheduled in.
Okay.
So we have kids scheduled in.
Okay. No, I just-
classes. But yes, they don't pass their classes, or the
Okay.
credits for the classes.
Do you have a lot of incompletes?
No, incompletes need to be, after a certain point, we turn them incomplete to 2.5.
Okay.
At the end of a quarter, the student has 2 weeks generally in order to get whatever work in if they have it incomplete, and then it switches to whatever letter grade. In some situations, for example, students who are hospitalized, something like that, might carry an incomplete longer than that. But at a certain point, the incomplete has to turn into a grade.
But that person would have received a 504 or something, right?
It depends. Generally, somebody who's got an incomplete for an extended period of time is someone who's going to be on some sort of a plan, whether it's a 504 plan or an IEP plan. So it would be unusual for a kid to carry something that long. But you could have a hospitalization where they end up not getting the 504 plan. But generally, yes, that's going to be a student who's on some sort of a plan. Medical plan.
Okay, aside from establishing that we need 4 classrooms to get to 85%, which doesn't mean that even though we're at 90,
No, four
92.4,
more classrooms gets us to 85%, but you've still got 100 students every period who are taking study because they don't have someplace else to go.
I didn't take it that way.
I just asked them.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah. No?
So if we got everybody to the 25 credits, we're going to need more classes, teachers, and classroom space in order to do that.
Right.
And if we
but-
wanted to fully book, in other words, kids don't have studies during the day, then you're talking about considerably more.
so this is if we had a school plan which didn't allow for study halls, period.
If we did not allow, if we required students to be fully booked every period of the day, that would mean a significant number of additional classes, teachers, and rooms. I don't have those numbers. I'm going
But
to calculate a few more.
But there are classes that are not full for
It
electives.
depends on what you define as full. I would say electives, in terms of electives classes,
Yeah.
our electives classes are pretty full. Most of them are at their, well, I shouldn't say most of them because I haven't looked at the number. We have a lot of electives classes that are at their max size. And in core classes, the enrollments, we like to cap at 25, but the average class size is lower than that, but it varies depending upon individual sections and that sort of
And
thing.
how you can make the schedule then.
So,
Okay, because I thought that if we had, I thought we actually had classes because there was a desire. And so there could just be 6 kids and we would have a class. And I thought we had some of those.
it's very rare that I'll do that. If I'm running a brand-new class that we've never run before, and it's got low enrollment, I might run it so we can make sure that we actually have the class run once so that we can then build
Interest.
desire for the future. But we have very few classes. Those are very exceptional situations. We have some classes that are specifically designed to be smaller. For example, like a Math Foundations class, which is kind of a math support class. We try to keep that below 16. And then there are other classes, ceramics classes, we don't go beyond 18 because of the resources that we have, the number of wheels that we have. Digital photography, I think we capped it, I can't remember if it's 16 or 17 because of the equipment that we have available. So different classes will have different caps.
But what Lynn brings up is interesting to me, because yesterday, someone in Bolton asked me, is the reason we are overcrowded at the high school because we're a comprehensive school and kids, they just keep adding courses because the kids want them. Which kind of is the same question as you've got a course with only 6 or 7 people in it.
So I think the answer to that is no, because I don't think our kids now are dramatically differently enrolled than they've been in the past. So it's not like in the past kids were taking 4 classes and now suddenly they're taking 6 classes. The enrollment for core classes may have ticked up a little bit in the last 5 to 10 years because we have probably more kids doubling up in math and doubling up in science like their senior year. So there's a little bit of, so there's probably some meeting that demand there, but that's not going to be dramatic. Tends to be
But you don't have a bunch of classes with 8 students in them.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, I can, if you're interested, I can run a list and I can come up with a list of the number of
No, I was
classes that have.
it was just
fewer
odd
than
to me that someone was asking me that question and then Lynn was
Right, I
bringing
mean,
this up. I guess the point is, there's a perception out there, which I was unaware of until yesterday, that to some extent the overcrowding in the high school is due to a proliferation of classes that don't have, I guess, a rhyme or reason to their being there.
So where we've added has been more on the elective side, which tends to be more specialized space. So for example, theater arts, and theater arts is one area, those are classes where we do have lower enrollment because we're building a program, so I'm willing to accept a little bit more there. That's scheduled in the theater, so that's not competing with like general use classrooms. General use classrooms are almost exclusively core classes, and so again, you might have a little bit of kids taking an extra math class, wanting to take statistics and calculus their senior year. But there's not very much of that, and those general use classrooms are filled with kids taking their foreign language, social studies, English, math, science. Those aren't, and those class sizes are not, we don't have classes there that are small. Every now and then, because of the way the numbers play out, we might have, last year we had 30 kids sign up for AP Bio, you can only have 25 in the science class, so we have 2 sections of 15.
Yeah.
But those class size averages are generally around 21 or 22 for the academic subject areas.
But does some of that kind of boil down to the, maybe the number of students per class is, kind of a good number, but the class they're trying to get, like some of the science classes with the additional lab time and kind of some of those things that they're, maybe they prefer to get a class, but they're in another class, kind of there's options.
Right.
So that each of those classes are filled, but it might not necessarily be the exact option with the additional lab time that they would want.
So yes, so in science, we have the 4-credit and 5-credit option in biology and in chemistry at different levels. And we have had situations where we have had students sign up for the 5-credit option, which is the additional lab every fourth day. And we're not able to run it because the number of teaching sections, it's generally a human resource thing, because then that takes up a little bit extra, a quarter extra of the teacher's overall load. So we do have situations where students want to take a 5-credit class, and instead they end up taking a 4-credit class. They want to take an extra lab class, but instead they take the not extra lab class. But that's really only true in science. I mean, we get kids into the core classes that they request. We don't have kids who aren't taking an English class or kids who aren't taking a math class. We get them into their core classes, and that's what takes up the general use space in the building. The more kind of boutique-y type classes really end up being those are electives.
Okay.
Is the standard for a 4-credit science course to be an every other day lab or something different?
So a 4-credit science course is just a science course that meets every day. And so they have labs that they do in that class as well. With a 5-credit, it just means that every 4th day you've got an extended time period so they can do more labs in a 5-credit class than they can do in a 4-credit class. I mean, all of our science classes are lab-based classes, so we're doing labs in all of those classes, whether 4, 5, 6, or 8 credits. But you've just got more time to do it in the 5-credit classes than in the 4-credit classes. You can do additional labs.
And the 6 and the 8?
So 6 is specific to specific classes. So we have freshman year physics with engineering applications is a 6-credit class. That meets a period. That meets 2 periods every other day. Physics in the senior year, same thing. That meets 2 periods every other day. And then AP biology and AP chemistry meet. I'm sorry, it's AP physics meets is the 6-credit. Regular physics can be either a 4 or a 5-credit. And then AP chemistry and AP biology are 8-credit. They meet 2 periods. And that's because essentially a kid is taking, in most high schools, the students would take biology one year, AP biology another year. We're essentially doing both curricula in the same, so they're doing kind of a biology curriculum and an AP curriculum in the same year.
You mentioned that kids are taking 2 sciences.
So we'll have students who will sometimes take like physics and anatomy and physiology. Anatomy and physiology is a pretty popular class. So sometimes the student will take 2 of those. We have probably a relatively small number of students who are interested in going into health sciences who might take anatomy and physiology and then the epidemiology class. Every now and then you might have a student who might take physics and then forensics, which is a 1-semester class.
But epidemiology and forensics, those are electives, right? Those aren't core? I mean, could somebody take epidemiology and not take physics?
Correct, yeah. Epidemiology is a
Okay.
science credit, so they're earning science credits by taking it. Now, epidemiology is a double period class, so an English teacher teaches one period and a science teacher teaches the other
So
period.
that's one of your blended classes.
So it's the study, it's the science and literature of epidemiology.
Okay.
So it lasts 1 semester, but they're getting 2 English credits and 2 science credits for that.
Okay.
And they could take that as their only science.
How's that doing?
Oh, fantastic. It's great. We read it last year, it was great, so we're running it again this year.
At what level are you teaching that?
That's accelerated level.
Accelerated, okay. Are you getting more CP kids jumping into that at all? Or?
Yes, so senior English is no longer, we no longer have a CP and accelerated, we just do that as accelerated.
Okay.
So students who are taking that course are taking accelerated English already. So we have some students who might historically have taken CP science who are now taking epidemiology at the accelerated level.
Would you have a CP English taking epidemiology?
Yeah, so a student who might have taken CP
I just heard some.
English their junior year,
I know.
there is no CP English their
Sorry.
senior year. So yes.
Okay. I didn't know if we were going to just ask again, sorry. I'm sorry. We can go back and talk, go ahead.
So students who might have a history of having taken CP classes prior, yes, we have some students in
Okay.
that profile who are taking accelerated. Now, the more common student is going to be a student who's taking accelerated.
Do they need a recommendation to get in there? If they were going from CP?
Well, that's a great question. I believe the answer is no, but I'm not entirely certain.
I'm hoping the answer is no.
I think the answer is no.
Okay. So if they show an interest, they can go.
Yeah, now, the tough thing with that is we can only offer 1 section, so we can only offer 25. So we generally have more students who want to take that class than we have spots available.
Is it going to be extended next year, then?
So offering 2 sections of it, there are a number of different reasons why that would be challenging. One is that now you're taking a science teacher who's already, so John and Doyle teaches that class on the science side. She teaches anatomy and physiology. So if we take her out of that, now that's 1 fewer section, most likely we're offering anatomy and physiology.
Yep. Okay.
But so, like, back to your question about our kids, now taking more, that's a situation in which we've got enrollment shifting from anatomy and physiology to epidemiology. So it's not them taking more. Students who were already taking 2 sciences were still taking 2 sciences, it just might be a different science.
With the curriculum already developed, could another teacher take over that class?
Potentially, but it's relatively specialized curriculum.
Okay.
Epidemiology is, a biology teacher might be able to do it, potentially. And then you have to also pair that with an English teacher, because it's the double, so.
Do you have any other opening of school issues?
No, it's been a good opening to school. The portal's helped a lot.
Yay, task force.
Yeah.
I just want to bring closer to your question and make sure, more for the public. Again, we are required by statute to offer 990 hours of instruction,
Yes.
and that essentially means that all kids should be taking 7 classes
Yeah.
for a day. It could be a lot of different combinations. They talk about banking would be a class and, so forth. So it can definitely be not as demanding, and there are ways to have directed study be counted as a course. But, so, we've been building toward that, because certainly 10 years ago, and this law has been in effect since 1993, I believe, we were not doing that. So certainly over the last 10 years, we have been adding courses because our goal is to get to there.
Okay.
In getting to there, you mean no study halls. Everyone's in a class for 7 periods.
But again, there are ways for kids to have a directed study and call it that and meet the requirements, but essentially, yes.
So the law says that we have to be there, but who set up the fact that you needed 90 credits to graduate?
That's ours. So we can do it lots of different ways, because how you count credits is a local decision. But the law says you have to have 990 hours of instruction,
Available or period?
period.
So like when I first proposed the late start idea, I had to make sure that our schedule has 990 instructional hours or more built into it. I can't create a master schedule that has fewer than 990 hours. So I have to, things like passing time, that doesn't count as instructional time. When we have early release or late start, that those don't get counted in the 990 hours.
But is it possible to blend that, so you still have the early starts for the people that have sports that want to get out early, and maybe have, I know we changed the subject, I know.
We're getting far.
It's staggered.
Michael, you wanted to address some parking issues?
Before we depart from the classroom fullness, is it possible for you to have like a 1 or 2 page or 3 page summary of the populations and all of the sections, so that people like us can point to, for the inquiring public, and we can point to it saying, see, the classes are, in the vicinity of 20 to 25 on the 90% level or something like that. Is that easily done for you?
Relatively easily done. I have the numbers from last year. I would need to go in and calculate the numbers for this year, although it's probably not too dissimilar.
Yeah.
But I calculate the numbers across the core subject areas, what the class averages are. I could give some, it becomes a little bit more qualitative with some of the electives, because you have specific caps for specific reasons. But I think I could probably provide some general information around that as well.
And does it turn out that in the last 2 or 3 years, you've had occasions where a section has for whatever reason, collapsed for lack of population, so you've extinguished a section?
Oh yeah, that happens every year.
So this year there may well be, or has been, an occasion where a section.
Oh yeah, when we have students sign up, if we only have 5 or 6 kids sign up for a class, we just don't run the class.
Right. Has that happened? Does that happen after the start of the year generally, or generally you sorted that out before school starts?
No, we sorted that out before the school year starts. I mean, very occasionally you might have something where you decide, we ended up with lower enrollment in this math section than we thought we were going to have, and higher enrollment here, so we need to shift a section. But that's relatively
about scheduling rather than after the fact. Oh, people are not able to. Right. People who signed up aren't showing up, or for whatever reason.
Yeah. So the master schedule is pretty much set by the time the school year starts, and which teachers are going to teach which classes and how many sections of each they're going to offer. So
it turns out none might be the answer for post September 1st.
I wouldn't say none, because every now and then we'll say, there have been times also where I know that a teacher is only teaching 4.5 to start, and I'm going to have them teach a class second semester. We're not sure if we want it to be this or if we want it to be that, and it kind of depends on.
So it can be administrative reasons.
So there might be limited situations where something like that happens, but essentially, yes, when the school year starts, as far as like math, English, foreign language, science classes that we're offering, those are fixed.
So it's very exceptional, basically.
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Just, I want to put it on our radar that along with the inside, we have the outside to contend with, and we are would you both agree, pretty much at the max for faculty parking,
Yeah.
in terms of spots available.
I think we're at the max for parking, period, whether it's faculty, student. I think you've now sold out of all student tickets, you've closed parking
Yeah.
passes, right?
Correct, we have done that.
So, just as we're thinking about meeting the space needs, whenever we add the staff to meet the academic needs, we're going to have the other issue. I just want people to have that on their radar, because we've been raising it for a number of years, not come up with a formal plan, but I think we're going to have to start thinking about
Well,
that.
is student parking only the large area to the west of the school?
I allow some student parking on the auditorium lot, so on that right-hand side, because
Yeah.
we have a relatively limited number of staff members who will park there, like our cafeteria workers will
Okay.
park there. So there are spaces available there, and we have a huge need for student parking, so I don't want spaces to go unused, so I allow some student parking on the auditorium side. But, yeah, the most students are parking, we have 225 now spaces total on the student side.
So when you talk about faculty parking, you're talking about the space between the building and Main Street?
Correct.
Okay.
So are the ones on the east side of the building, are those numbered for the students?
The ones on the east side, are you talking about the auditorium lot
On the
side?
auditorium, I know that you.
We have not yet numbered the auditorium lot side, although that's something that Bill and I have talked about. The numbering system worked out tremendously well, and the feedback I've gotten is to go ahead and number those last 10 spaces that are in the back. In other words, in the student parking lot, I left 10 spaces unnumbered
Oh.
to allow for a little flexibility if somebody comes in and somebody parked. In fact, we had a situation where we had a new staff member who didn't know they weren't supposed to park there. They parked in a student space, student shows up. So there's a little
Right.
flexibility for them to park somewhere else. But some of the feedback I've gotten is now students want to try to go and get in those unnumbered spaces because we've sold unnumbered parking passes to juniors. And if they're taken, then they have to come back out onto 117 and go back around and get to the auditorium side. So what we've talked about doing is going and numbering those last 10 spaces, assigning those to juniors who have unnumbered spots, going ahead and giving them numbered spots. And I've already got a sequence of which juniors will come up first.
So you're going to number the auditorium side?
And then number the auditorium side as well.
All of it, or just the ones for
I think
students?
I'd number the entire auditorium side, but then I would have to make sure that some staff had specific numbered spaces because we have staff that park over there as well.
Yep, that makes sense.
But yeah,
Which I think we can accomplish in
Yes.
October. Well, I just need basically a day where we don't have cars in the lot to
Yep.
get in there, and that's a tough area. That auditorium lot is, usually people are always there, but it's pretty quick to do.
yeah, and the numbering has worked out tremendously well.
So if you have the entire lot in use, how does it work out when you have big snowstorms? What is the shrinkage on the lot?
That was an issue last
I was sleeping
winter.
night over that this year, because now with numbered spots, I know that if we have another winter event like we had last year, it's going to be a challenge.
Bill and I had a moment at one point after the spots got numbered where we looked at each other and we said, what are we going to do when it snows?
Well,
Because
why don't you just mandate they have to take the bus? It's safer anyways. It's like, you can't park in Boston when there's snow, why would it be any different yet?
We'll
Take
let the
the bus.
students know to call you. Their parents who came up with that idea. I mean, they're paying for a spot, and there are certain spots that are more susceptible to the snow than others.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
Those piles get pretty high.
yeah, we're going to have to.
So in part, there's a problem with snow storage besides just clearing. There's not a great place for having mounds, tremendous mounds
And
of
we ran
snow.
into that last year, the constant compounding of the storms. We got to the point where the machinery that was available really couldn't push these piles back.
You really should get your entrepreneurial business guy and have the kids figure out how to take care of the snow.
Take care of the snow.
Yeah, maybe they can figure out something, how to melt it quickly or something.
Did you have to ship snow off for the
then you
site
can-
last year? Or
We did it last year.
Contracting.
But we closed a lot, but we closed a lot of parking in lieu of
You'd be
the
surprised.
costs of shipping snow off-site.
Let me ask,
We talked about that.
being a resident of Bolton, when you rent out the school or the playing fields or whatever happens there on Saturday mornings for dance contests, do they know, are there any parking restrictions? I mean, do they, is there something that says you can only have this many people park? Because I don't think it was this past weekend, maybe it was the weekend before.
2 weekends ago, yeah.
Yes, they were parked along Main Street.
All the way up to
parked
Bolton
Up and
Orchards.
down Green Road, yeah.
Yes.
And all over the lawn.
Right, and yes, to a point, we look at, when we do a booking, we have them say how many people they expect. And a group like the one that you're saying said 1,000. And I look at 1,000 and say, okay, 1,000's on the heavy end, but it's manageable because I always kind of go with a 50% rule on cars, for every, 2 people, you have 1 car, so I say 500 cars. There's a lot going there. We require them to get a detail and said, you're gonna need a detail to help bring this in. So we went through the things.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that event, the feedback I'm getting is there was closer to 2,000
They
people.
lowballed the number, I think.
The number was well above what was the projection. It's something that's difficult for us to police. We kind of go on the...
Yeah. No,
And in that case, there was an issue because the cars were parked all the way down to Bolton Orchards.
Yeah, and this is leaf peeper season, so, this is the time of year, if I don't get to Bolton Orchards by 8 on Saturday morning, I don't go all weekend, just because of the traffic. And it was like that, but the reason I'm bringing it up is, if we do an expansion, there's clearly gonna be a loss of parking space somewhere.
Right.
And as bad as it would be for students and teachers, it's gonna, what's gonna happen with these other,
Well, there's also, if we do an expansion, depending on the scope of what we do, I think we have to put some thought into parking. And part of that thought may be changing where our leaching fields are. Currently, our leaching fields are in the front of the school,
Right.
to the right and left of the 117 exit. Those 2 areas, one is the actual leaching field, one is the emergency backup in case that one fails. I can't do anything on those. There's a lot of area there that could be expanded to parking. There's some areas over by the septic building that goes down that the grade slopes way down. And if we could adjust the topography there, that we may have some options for more parking. And the leaching fields may be able to be shifted to over where the sports fields are. So I think there's options, but it would definitely need to be part of our discussion of expansion.
But aren't there advances in that where they're able to displace the weight and they have the aggregate that the water actually goes through?
Yes.
Are there things that you could actually keep it there, but you would have to use special...
what happens is, you're gonna pack down the soil from the weight, and then
They
it
haven't
won't
figured out how to
percolate.
do that, huh? I thought you could do that.
There's technology for everything, it's just
Yeah. How much do you
extremely
wanna pay?
expensive.
Well, think how much it's going to be to change out the leaching field.
Well, that's, I'm glad I asked the question now, because that had never, ever occurred to me to switch the leaching fields.
And it may be a hybrid, maybe we leave the leaching field we have in place, but just reallocate where our expansion, a backup field is. Maybe a backup field.
Still left plumbing.
What's that?
That you're still digging and you're diverting the plumbing.
Well, if we, and this is kind of off topic, but if we left the field where it is,
Yeah.
that way we expect, we have no expense. But our field that's not developed, that's our emergency backup field, we re-engineer that to another location, and then that allows us to build and do what we want there.
Yeah.
It would just be a paper change, right?
Well,
I mean, there's
so you
some,
wouldn't have to put the plumbing in?
No,
No.
the backup area is a backup area. There's no
There's nothing-
equipment in there now at all.
it's just an identified space that if this field, they require you to say, if that field fails, you better have
Ready
another
to
spot
go.
identified that's been perked and ready and identified for. Other than that, we lose the ability to
And
So
the
how
have
many
clay
cars
fields
did you pick up?
are far enough away from the well to permit that?
that. Anything to the left side, the science wing of the building is outside of that 250-foot DEP Zone 1 radius. So
Okay.
it really picks up as you get about midpoint of the school down to the auditorium side.
Okay.
All that stuff gets into the next steps of options and, is it moving things around? Is it a parking garage? Is it this? Is it that?
Yeah, no, I never,
I think I want a garage.
It's all options.
It is an option, but I mean, with kids.
Yeah.
So how many
Okay.
cars could fit in a leaching field?
So maybe 100? Yeah, I'd say just off the hip, 100.
How much to perk?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, anytime you have engineering services come out, I mean, you could be looking at $30,000 to,
Just a perk?
well, to perk and do an engineering study.
Yeah, you gotta
and
do multiple
everything.
perks. It's, you know, you got a higher standard because it's gonna be a public
Right.
leaching field.
Again, just thinking of what I've seen in the past.
Is there any proximity issues to going closer to a green road? To expand parking that way?
No. No,
How close, is there a code as far as how close we can go to Green Road? I'm not Green Road, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
well,
117.
There are codes, but we also have a little bit of flexibility with being a educational facility
Okay.
under, you know, the Doberman and different things like that we
Mhm.
could. And I mean, there is options to push forward towards Green Road.
Mhm.
There's some, again, topography issues there.
Right.
And some
Oh, yeah.
fire road access. To
Right.
add one row of parking,
Right.
I also need to add another access road.
Right.
But I think there's also options there. We just have to look at,
Mhm.
you know, maybe getting another 30 spots. What's it going to take to get that 30 or 40
Yeah.
spots? But
Okay, and back to what you said. What are you looking at in increase of staff? You made it sound like you've got planned staff.
No, but I'm just,
If you had classrooms.
if you had classrooms, I'm just saying.
That'll be part of the whole, it's not like we're
Right, it's-
increasing in the near future.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any thought of what you're gonna do with the, I mean, are you still planning on putting parking on the tennis courts?
it's been an ongoing discussion, but no, as of right now, we don't have any concrete plans. There's been
Or asphalt,
or asphalt.
or asphalt plants.
Yeah, concrete or asphalt plans.
I gotcha.
There's been some requests from the town that we explore that further, but we're still,
Okay.
we don't have anything on the books right now that's,
But right now, it's actually being used for intramurals and general public using tennis courts.
general public uses it for tennis. We maintain it for tennis courts and as well as some of the,
The weed study program,
The weed study?
the weed study
I'm
program.
glad. Is that one of your blended sciences,
Growing, yeah, the different kinds of weeds you can grow out there.
Perry? Is that one of your blended sciences, the weed study program?
We did actually have students out doing in environmental science, doing some ecological testing.
Some invasive testing?
And then had to reproduce the ecology, so there was some weed testing that was going on.
Under a grant or anything? Or just for fun?
Okay.
I think Papasynicate School septic is underneath their parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
and will be, they're digging it up and replacing it, so it's
It's option, yeah.
it's not for
doable.
Oh, it's definitely doable,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've done in a lot of schools.
Yeah,
Well, ours
you-
at Center is near it.
Yes.
No, we
Yeah.
were supposed to put tennis courts on top of centers, and we never did. So,
We don't have a desk at Center.
yes, we had tennis courts, we tore them down,
Right.
and we were going to replace them on top of the septic. And then, just before the plans went to bid, they were taken off.
Remember that?
So, is the population of parking, how many are a younger year than senior, would you guess, or what fraction?
I knew this number. It is probably 80% senior, 20% junior. That's a little bit rough. And we gave priority to seniors first. We were able to accommodate, I believe, all the juniors who requested passes who already had their license and registration at the beginning of the year. So we'll have lots of juniors who now will hit their, the point where they have their license, but we don't have the
No
spaces
space.
available.
Just to put that in perspective, though, there are 218 spaces.
There are 225 on the student lot, and there are, I can't remember how many I sold unnumbered spaces for the auditorium side, but it's around 240 to 250 total student spaces that we,
So
those total student parking spaces that we sell.
this year's senior class is like 267, something like that. So just to kind of put in perspective, we're only talking about roughly 60%, 55% of our senior class.
Well, he says 80%, 80 and 20.
That's 80% of who's parking, not of the senior
Oh.
class.
Gotcha.
And in general, is parking actively used, nearly full every day on good days? So a third, a quarter perhaps of our population is not using the bus. That we've contracted basically.
Roughly, yeah,
to use the
just
bus.
under that probably, but yes. Well, and actually, no, that's probably right, because we have students who then ride with other students.
Right.
So some sharing and slightly emptier buses.
And we already only bus plan for 85% of our total high school population to be riding. So we're already under,
Yeah.
or we're probably at about where we should be in terms of.
Where you have
but
some
even less.
flexibility.
We have some,
for stuff.
yeah.
Okay. We've gone to a wide range of issues here, which probably is indicative of the fact that we don't have a solid series of steps to going forward. So let's look at some of that. I've got, you should have 3 pieces of paper in front of you. One of them says review of action items from the interim reports 1 and 2. One is the extracts from the NEASC report, the space needs portions, and one is just some open action items at the heading.
Do you have additional copy of those?
Right there. Yeah. So what I did was went back to interim reports 1 and 2 and wrote down the action items. I was hoping that we could, I guess we've got enough people here to at least make it worth getting a consensus as to how many of these are done. And we can say that they're finished. We don't have to pursue them anymore. So the first one is understand the consequences of less than a full day instructions, how much space and how much space is needed to remedy the consequences.
When you say less than full day of instruction, do you mean students scheduled for fewer than 7 periods per day?
That, yes, yes. And, I think that was where that one and the next one, which also, A and B, also, which it specifically calls out the science courses, are where we got the remedies that we immediately need 6 general purpose classrooms and 1 science lab, just to get out of trouble for the current state of the overcrowding.
What are you on, B?
I'm on A and B. So I guess the other way to do it is, are there aspects of those questions that we haven't pursued and we should pursue? My view is no. We've covered those pretty thoroughly, but I want to get everyone's buy-in on that, or identify what other things we need to do to close these action items.
Okay, well, the first one, understand the consequences of less than 7 periods of instruction per day. So basically, it's state law. I mean, what are the consequences or the adverse consequences?
Are there DESE waivers for all the schools who don't have
No study
Well,
hall.
supervised study
I
halls?
think-
How does that happen regulatory?
From my point, I read that differently now than I read it when we first put it together.
Okay.
Because at the time we first put it together, all we knew was that there were a bunch of kids in study halls, because there weren't classrooms for them to have classes in. They were literally sitting in the hallway. What we've learned since that time is that if it's directed study, it's considered part of the 990 hours per year. And so the issue was one of, let's get those students back into classrooms where it's going to be easier to properly direct them. Because a lot of them go to the library now, or the media center. And, you know, and as far as adverse consequences, we've never addressed that because we didn't have as serious a problem as we thought we did with the first sentence of that statement.
Okay.
But for the last part of that, how much space is needed to remedy, I thought we didn't have that exact answer, and Perry talked about looking at it, or maybe I misunderstood something. That, do we know what it would?
So I can figure out mathematically what it would take, how many classrooms we would need if we had every student scheduled every period of the day.
Even if it was a class, even if it was a whatever study hall, but it was in that classroom versus in the
Cafeteria.
Auditorium foyer.
I like that space.
So see, my recollection of this was that the students in the hallway or migrating over to the media center, that was 6 classrooms worth of students. And plus we needed a science lab right away. And then to get from there down to 85% utilization is going to be another 3 or 4 classrooms and maybe 1 more science lab, incrementally. But that's kind of what I'm asking. But yeah.
No, if that's the answer, that's fine. But I guess I wasn't sure what the answer was, or kind of.
So my answer to, if we wanted to get to 85% utilization with the way that we currently do things, we're talking about 3 additional general use classrooms and 1 additional science classroom based on this year's numbers. If we then, beyond that, wanted to get to all of the students who are unscheduled for a period, who are in directed study, whether that's in the media center or the auditorium foyer, if we wanted to put them in classrooms instead, then that would be a different number. If we said we want to have every student be in a scheduled class, not directed study, every period, then that's an even larger number. And I can figure out what those 3 numbers are.
So just getting people out of study is a different number. Just getting people out of the hallways or the auditorium or the media center is a different number than actually having them take classes.
So I heard you say, what if if study hall was scheduled into classrooms rather than the auditorium foyer and kids?
The room, not that they were taking a course.
Right. So just to put them in actual rooms, how many rooms would that mean? So if I took all the students who were in the media center or an auditorium foyer studying and said, now you have to be in a classroom, then how many classrooms would that take?
Right.
But then it would be that would probably be the same number that if we said we were going to schedule them into classes, right? Because we're putting them in a classroom.
Okay.
Well, it might not be exactly the same number because
Because you'd have different classes and different utilization.
Different sizes.
Right, you could say I'm going to stick 25 kids into a study, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to
Don't say
put 25 kids
25
into an English
into one.
class.
Right.
Or into a art class.
So the study should be easier because you're not trying to balance schedules. You're just shoving.
Just taking the number divided by
class.
25.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So is that 4 or 5 classrooms?
No, that's separate. So if I take the current situation that we have, and we're at like whatever I said, 93-ish% utilization. If I want to get us to 85% utilization, then we need to add 3 classrooms without changing a thing. Just add 3 general use classrooms and a science lab to get to 85% utilization. And then if beyond that, I wanted to take all the students who are in study and put them in physical rooms, now I've got
Another 6.
I need even more space.
Right.
And then if I want to put them in classes and not just 25 to a room, now I'm going to need even more
So
space.
that middle option of just putting them in the class that's not a course, how many rooms is that?
So that's probably, if we probably average 75 to 125 kids per period. So you're talking about 3 to 5 classrooms then per period. Beyond the getting us to 85% utilization.
Right.
So now you're talking about 6. So if you say call it 4, now you're talking about 7 general use classrooms plus a science lab.
So now you have a library and a cafeteria that are empty.
At that point, the media center and the auditorium foyer, we have no students in those places. Those are off the top of my head numbers. They're probably pretty close. It might vary by a classroom, but those are pretty close numbers.
Except though that the library now can be used more for what it's intended, which is
Right.
to be signed out by teachers and brought in. And
Right.
For individual kids to come there from classes to do research and so forth, so.
But that doesn't make sense, because what kind of research are they doing in the cafeteria right now? Are they doing,
In the auditorium floor.
no, in the media center? What kind of, if they were to sign out the media center, they're signing it out for the purpose of using computers?
So there's a computer lab that's in there that's with Chromebooks, so they might be using that, and that's in kind of a backspace of the media center. If they're doing some sort of a presentation thing, there's a back area that they can sign up for a presentation. If they want students to be doing some sort of group work and using actual books, then they can go and have them do that.
Now,
So there could be possibly as many as 3 simultaneous classes in
Yep.
between the
This
between the
space-
divided off computer room and the.
If nobody else is in there,
Right.
then, and there's an additional computer lab that's in there that you can check out as well. So you could
So there
have,
are 2 computer opportunities.
so there's a computer lab and then there's a more kind of open space that has Chromebooks. So you
Yeah.
you could theoretically have 4 different classes in the media center at one time,
but it
doing different
doesn't,
things.
but it doesn't make sense to me to leave a classroom to go to the media center to use a computer. I mean, I don't know why you couldn't do, except for the books, I don't know why you couldn't do group works, presentations, and Chromebooks in the classroom.
So when kids are bringing their own individual Chromebooks to class, yes, I think that makes sense. But right now, you have to go, you have to get the Chromebook cart, you have to wheel it down to the classroom, you have to distribute all the Chromebooks, you have to collect all the Chromebooks back, you have to wheel it back to the media center so that whoever wants it next can get it. If you go and you use the Chromebook lab, you walk in, the Chromebooks are right there, they're powered up, kids open them up.
But that's not what we're working towards.
Say again?
From my understanding, the way the physical network is working is eventually there's not going to be any use to, I mean, everything's going to be in the classroom. So it doesn't make sense to go to the media center because you can do it in the classroom.
Depending upon what resources you have there.
When you get to that point, yeah. I think what we're touching on here is if you're going to do some modifications to the school, you've got to go and look at what's the best use of the space in the media lab.
Right.
But I don't think we're going to solve that tonight.
What do you want a future?
Because that was one of the
media center to
questions, what is the media center going to be?
Right,
And how is it going to be used?
right. And
And there's some conflicting conversations about, what
Yeah.
the classroom's going to be.
that's, and I'm getting ahead of the conversation a bit here, but that may be, I think one of the things we should do is, I'd like to see us put out a final report that says, here's our statements, here's what we recommend happening next. You should form a committee to do X, Y, and Z. And addressing the space, the library space, the media center space, I think should be on that list of things that we expect the next committee to answer.
Okay.
I don't see how this group can come to any conclusions on that.
About the media center, yeah. Well, I just don't want to,
Lose visibility on that issue.
well, that, and I don't want to front load the classroom need in the media, I mean, I don't want to overload it to the point where it's unmanageable
The media center?
in the classrooms. Because we're talking about emptying the media center, and if the media center turns into a use that is not going to be, we don't need the large space anymore,
Right.
that could become classrooms.
It could. It could.
So I don't want to.
It could be one of the, 6 or 7 classrooms that Perry's talking about. But again, that's, I think, for the next group to
Okay.
examine.
Or the other kinds of spaces, the small group instructional spaces that we need, or conference spaces that we need.
Yeah.
Can you characterize, I'm thinking about my high school, for that matter, college experience, where study time, I would be in the library and doing stuff. Can you characterize the use of the library strictly as a library resource to the young people for whatever research, independent or class-oriented?
So
solo activity?
So currently students, if they have an unscheduled period and they're going to the media center, so a lot of our students will get a permanent media center pass. If they have a B period, unscheduled first semester, they get a permanent media center pass and they just go to the media center B period. So there's a lot of students sitting around a table talking about a project that they're working on. They're getting ready for a test. They're talking. I heard a bunch of students today talking about physics problems that they were working on. There are students who are working on computers or have checked out Chromebooks and are working on Chromebooks doing some sort of research or writing a paper or a project.
And for example, you can't really check out the Chromebook in the foyer area, correct?
Yeah. No, if they want to have, they can have their own device if they brought their own device from home, but if they want to have a device that we don't have them available in the foyer, they need to check something out in the media center. So it's a lot of using technology to, sometimes it might be specific programs that they're using, but it's generally writing a paper, collaborating on a project, studying for a test or a quiz.
So part of my question is, if we schedule everybody out of the library, are you actually removing some particular kind of school opportunity of some kind of flavor by doing so? And it's really kind of almost a curriculum question.
Right, if a student has study hall, there are going to be times when they want to go and be working in the media center with a group of friends on a project rather than, because you've got in a classroom, that's not necessarily going to work.
So going back to our action items, is there something we, for the first one, A, is there something we need to do, or is there something we need to see to say that that's done? Or is it done?
Well, actually, sort of the unanswered question for me is, regulatorily speaking, so what is, are there regulatory waivers for schools that don't comply with the directed study supervision?
They actually
rules?
do not waive that.
And so how, for those, all the schools that are non-complying, I'm sure there are dozens.
They're either unknown.
What is the process?
They are either unknown or
I mean, it's
DESE
flying under the radar,
they're
nobody cares.
flying under the radar, or DESE will come in and tell them that they have to do it.
Right. At which point, the town or whoever wakes up and says, oh my God, we have to deal with this
Right.
and build stuff to make it possible.
Right.
And are there instances that you're aware of that this has actually occurred?
Yeah, in recent history, I'm trying to think who just went through it. It was a high school, I don't want to list the name, but it was a high school in the area. But if I did Google it, I could find it, where there was a complaint and DESE came in and they made them change their schedule to accommodate instructional time. Sometimes it's as easy as changing their schedule. It's not a staffing issue or a space issue.
Right.
They just didn't have enough time in their schedule for instructional time, but they made them do it. I'm thinking of two, I think, in last 7-8 years.
Were there other issues that may have been associated with whatever, the performance of that particular school, with them taking more of an interest in looking at the hours, or is it just something that may have just been stumbled upon and the rules on the books, but they're not really going out, but when they're made aware of it, now they're saying, you gotta correct this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the schools that of the two that I think that was closer to here, it's a high-performing school. So the issue was somebody got angry about something and reported them. So the other school, I think, was there were questions about actual instructional time, and somebody was concerned about that, made the complaint.
So therefore, a hypothetical response is to have a particular more active presence if either in whatever places these people are right now under our current regime, whether it's the media lab or the foyer or cafeteria space. That would answer the need for directed study if there were.
I mean, we currently meet the definition of directed study.
Right.
We're complying with what the state requires us to do.
So therefore, difficulty is that it's non-ideal spaces as opposed to complying with the regulations.
Right. It's not that we're not complying with the regulations. It's really talking about what's the best way to use the space and the best way to schedule how we want that time being used during the school day.
So even the auditorium foyer areas considered directed study?
Yeah, it's not the space, it's the way that the time is used. So you have either one or two adults who are in there, and you have kids at tables, and they're doing work. So it's directed study. The teachers are directing.
Has to be supervised by a licensed individual. So, to Barry's point, we're meeting the requirements in terms of the letter of the law. But the question is, do we want to just be meeting the letter of the law? Do we want to meet the intent, which is that we want to have kids, the majority of our kids, in courses getting instruction?
Well, I guess I didn't have an understanding that we were meeting the letter of the law, I guess.
No, we are.
We are meeting the letter.
I certify every year that we're meeting. I have to put in writing that you're meeting the
It's
letter.
taken a while. I mean, the last 7, 8 years. we've been built toward it.
So how are we with A?
Do we need to look at adverse
I'm good with
consequences
that.
to not having 990 instructional hours per year?
But we have 990
Okay,
hours.
so there is no adverse
There are
consequences.
no
We have it.
adverse consequences.
None.
I mean, yes.
We are compliant. So A is done?
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay. We'll have to go over this again when we have a quorum, but, how much space and facilities are needed to restore full period instruction for all subjects? I think, again, I think we addressed that.
Yeah, I think we have that.
The outstanding question that Perry is going to address is how do you get that down to 85%, as opposed to how do you deal with it? Evaluate.
Can I ask us,
Yeah.
tangentially to that, are we also talking about, in terms of the quality of the instructional spaces for their purposes? In other words, the quality of the science labs?
Are you saying that the science labs aren't compliant?
No, he doesn't want us to lose sight of the fact that they're not as good as they could be.
Or there are no
Which
issues
is
like
fine, but
ventilation and so forth.
Well,
I mean, they met the requirements for the state to work with us for a recovery and reuse.
okay.
So that to me says that they are not currently meeting the standards of the expectations of 21st century science classrooms.
Okay, say that again.
They don't currently meet the standards and expectations of 21st century science classrooms, science labs.
Okay.
And what's the definition of that?
Well, it's all the standards that they outlined in the
It's
science lab.
Yeah, it's new build.
Experiment.
1,440 square
Or
feet.
when-
You know,
Right.
Meaning the standards have changed since 1970.
But
For
one of
61.
For
the
grandfather.
one of the things we need to do in a final report is, and we've said this from the first day we met, is set priorities.
Right.
And, I think in what we've put in writing so far are the oh my God issues.
Mhm.
This is what everyone needs to know about, and this is our baseline. This is the minimum we have to address. I think items such as remodeling the science labs is something that we've got to rank, put in our final report, and then rank it as however we decide to do it, a must-have,
Okay.
nice to have,
Mhm.
better do it, something like that.
That's fine. That's fine. I just want it to be there.
Yep.
Yeah, but when you say something like that, it sets up a red flag. And so, but right now, for what the students need to do to learn what they need to learn, the state has said that we are adequate.
The NEASC report that just came out
Yep.
said that the science labs are adequate. It's not the exact words they used, but I'll give you the exact words.
So they're not pretty.
The school does have necessary science equipment.
That's it?
Well, there's more to it than that, in the sentence to that, but that was the part
Yeah,
that pertains to,
We're able to provide a quality education in the spaces
Yes.
because of what the teachers are able to do.
Yeah, it says the school does not have enough science labs to safely provide the effective delivery of science curriculum and instruction, nor are the science labs updated to reflect the needs of a 21st century classroom. And it goes on to there and identifies a number of different deficiencies.
So the red flag there is safely.
No, I don't think there's a red flag. I think it's a yellow flag. I think it's a warning. Safely provide effective delivery of science.
I mean, some of the things like ventilation and some of those things that aren't the snuff, there's different levels of safety. I mean, kind of the.
Well, it just limits the degree of the.
It limits your curriculum. So the curriculum's adequate or a little bit more than adequate right now, but as the competing high schools change their curriculum, unless we upgrade our science facilities, we're not going to be able to be competitive with those other schools. So I think what NEASC is, on one hand, they're saying there's no immediate problem, but they're sending up a yellow flag.
But the bottom line is the kids are safe.
The kids are safe.
Okay.
Yes, there's nothing, anything in the NEASC report that they're in any way unsafe.
No.
There's nothing to suggest that.
So returning to Part B, one area I think challenge is that some of the specialized spaces are, at least computer labs, I think, for example, are running up against a desired use to have more of them.
Yeah, except you're not going to need science labs.
Well, I'm not speaking just computer labs, for example.
I mean,
think
computer-
they're
not science
full-
labs,
they're full all the
computer labs.
time, right?
Well, you do, like, Chromebooks don't have software loaded directly on them, it's all web-based, and a lot of the work that they do in classes in computer labs, that are scheduled in computer labs, require specialized software that you can't have on a Chromebook, and that's not currently web-based.
Okay, and last I heard, the tech committee was working on that.
Well, they're always looking for web versions of things, but Perry's right. I mean, there's the graphic design, for example, courses. I don't think any of that software currently is available.
I mean, digital photography, graphics classes, CAD classes.
This thing, just the Chromebook's not going to be able to handle, period. You
Yeah,
need
it just doesn't have the processor.
higher-powered
But
computer to
again,
do it.
if you have those, when you're talking like AutoCAD, I mean, you're in the classroom, you're not going to a lab, are you?
AutoCAD is done in a computer, it's in a classroom that has like drafting tables and computers around it.
Yeah, so that's not being shared with anybody else, is it?
It's not a general purpose classroom, no.
Well, we do a math class in there.
We have had general purpose classes in there at times,
Oh.
but we don't this year.
And all the other specialized ones you talked about, are those in the labs or are those in, because I would think graphics would be in a classroom.
That's in the graphic classes are in a computer lab that has like Adobe loaded on the computers. Digital photography is in a small computer lab that has.
And Adobe can't
specific
go on
software.
Chromebooks?
No.
No.
Okay. I don't know Adobe.
So for that particular resource, is it true that that's for this year currently scheduled up to its maximum, or are there some?
I think I said the
vacancies?
computer labs were at like 85 to 90% utilization right now. We've shifted, like some of our computer science classes, we actually shifted to classroom spaces, and we're using mobile technology rather than static technology.
And just continuing, sort of thinking about specialized spaces, the art rooms are, does it turn out to be that there is a little more demand and there is
Art rooms are-
space, or is that?
Art rooms are okay, because we've got, well, from a quantity standpoint, the art room's okay because we have 3 classrooms, but that's because we took one nice big
Divided it,
space
yeah.
and cut it in 2. So you got 2 small spaces. But with 3 spaces, yes, we're able to schedule classes.
And as best you know, the specialized spaces in general, beyond those, are running
Band,
towards maximum,
music,
but not
theater, wood, metal. We talked about computer labs already.
The band room is undersized for the current size of the band, correct? Right, it's got a 50 student maximum?
I'm not sure where that number came from. I saw that
posted. It's posted by our fire,
Yeah, fire marshal.
They'll quote
The
the
49 number, it's 49, I think.
Okay. So,
Doesn't have two means of egress.
It does.
it does have the two.
But the size of the doors and the way the doors swing and,
Oh, that's what it is.
and there's, without having outside swing,
Painted hardware.
doors.
swing
So it's not the
Specific
amount of space,
hardware.
it's the types of doors that we have.
It's the egress
Can't-
restrictions and
The space is limited.
it can, but
49.
there's a cost to it
Regardless
because
of the
it's
egress.
quite a,
Big door, but we're just talking a door.
yeah. I mean, well, we're talking 2 doors and the hardware associated with it. So it is possible.
But that's not a huge expense.
But the size of the room for the number of participants, given the kinds of equipment that has to be in the room, it's.
That's tight also.
So you
if we
only
get
get 10 or
above the-
15 more out of changing your doors, or perhaps something like that. You could, a limited.
Right, the discussions we've had is we spend the money to change the doors, which could be upwards of,
Again, I think that this is a
Yep.
topic for the next
Right,
committee.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's maintenance, but, okay.
So I'm hearing in short,
Bob, you're doing a good job of keeping it.
so I'm hearing in
Trying.
short, the specialized areas are sometimes not, or slightly smaller than needed, but
But I think what we have,
barely adequate on most cases. if
Number
that's
of
wrong.
classrooms for specialized spaces. Computer labs is a little bit hazy, but otherwise we have quantity of classrooms that we.
but Mark, if I heard Perry right, you're gonna give us a list of the utilization for the classes?
Yes.
You know, are they full and what, you know, basically?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's gonna give us
I
all
can
the
give
uses
art,
for it.
we got 3 art rooms, so I can give you what the
Right.
utilization.
And the numbers, yeah.
Number is for art
And the
stuff like that
band
as
and
well.
just,
Yep.
yep. Because the utilization is different for all specialized. Got it. Would that help, Mark?
Yeah, that's great. I think I've queried the topic.
Okay.
Okay, so B is
I remember
closed.
to do that.
So A is closed and B is closed.
Yeah. So C, evaluate the effect of student outcomes of lack of meeting space for teacher collaboration, administrative tasks, and professional tasks. My take on this is, we looked at this, we determined that there was no objective criteria for evaluating this and didn't follow up on it.
It was
And-
more of
Pardon me?
a qualitative kind of.
Right, it was anecdotal,
Yeah, I think it's
some
hard
of
to do
which,
other than anecdotal.
some of which we caught, right?
Yeah.
Some of which is in the report, in interim report number 2. But despite the fact of saying that we didn't do it because we can't figure out a way to do it, and I would just say it's closed. But again, it's up for discussion.
I mean, I think I would agree we did the best we could, given it, and I think it's an important thing to consider that there's a lack of some of those types of spaces, but how it impacts or what the right number is, and all the other stuff is.
We documented you can't, if your teacher's got a cart, you can't talk to them after class. If there's a cart, you lose time at both the beginning and the end of class, teaching time, face time, things like that. And some of the other.
Guidance and kind of.
Right.
Well, these fall under the, when you go to MSBA, these are covered, right?
Say again?
Are these covered under the MSBA?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah, in their formula, they calculate.
How much space in each room?
conferences and
Do we have
has
that?
meeting spots and collaboration spots with
Do we
teachers.
meet their percentages? I thought we talked about that. We met the percentage.
No, we didn't meet the
No,
percentage.
I don't remember.
Because didn't you do a percentage of
Yeah, but I don't
students
think,
per?
I don't remember doing one for just support space.
Okay. You just did it for guidance?
I did it for guidance, yes. I did it for guidance, I did it for science, I did it for general purpose classrooms, and I did it for admin. That was as fine as I broke it down.
So given the history of cannibalization of space if they're turned to be out to be beyond the identified general classrooms that we think are desirable, if there were even one or two more, some of those cannibalizations disappear and there would be a different, or some more quantity, perhaps even quality space for teachers and departments for sort of professional work or administrative tasks or meeting with students. That's desirable. And
are you saying if we added classrooms, does that mean the teachers then have more meeting space?
yes, or that there's some spaces that may have been cannibalized for whatever reason and that they can be resumed as a teacher or student-teacher kind of
For teaching
space.
meeting space, I don't think so. So I'm trying to think, I mean, math, foreign language, social studies, science, English, they all have their own individual workrooms. The other, those aren't, I mean, if I had to, I might be able to take some of those spaces and convert them to teaching space, but not full classrooms, I think in those cases. The other desk space areas that people have aren't usable for instructional space. So I don't think that adding, 3 classrooms suddenly means that we've got teaching space or collaboration space available. It just means that suddenly things are a little bit more flexible.
Right, and perhaps since I did phrase my question about if we had, say, instead of the 3 that we think we now need, or I have identified, if there were 4 or maybe 5, does that release some of the compression that's happened to the teacher office collaboration space?
No, because I think it's different kinds of space.
Okay.
So is C done?
I asked it off of the list.
It's good enough for me.
There we go.
All right, develop a detailed list of heating and/or ventilation issues. That is open, that is squarely on my back. I have all my notes from a meeting with Bill, which I have somehow forgotten to type up. So I own that.
Well, if I can help you with that in any way, let me know.
I will call you up and say, what did you mean when you told me this?
Yeah, I'm happy. Do you want me to compile some things from that
No,
meeting and the notes?
I think I can,
Okay.
I'll be pretty good. I'll be typing up the notes and then I'll be expanding on it, but I may call you back and say, I've got this hazy recollection. Is this really what you said?
No problem.
Do that kind of thing. Review the 10-year plan for maintenance and capital improvements. That was a night we spent with Bill and his blueprints,
Right.
right? So we're all set there? No objections. Determine how to develop reliable projection of enrollment. We're working on the request for proposal. Understand the curriculum goals and determine if achieving these goals is affected by space limitations. Michael and Perry have an action item of putting together some kind of what the curriculum is going to look like in the next few years and what specialized spaces additional courses might require, right? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not done, but it's got your name next to it.
Which one?
G. And F is done, and D belongs to me. And then the action items from interim report number 2, present the interim report to the school committee and request the school committee authorize a population study, which we did, and then present the interim report at a tri-town meeting, which we also did. So that is a good plan.
Are you going to be doing another interim report?
We will do a final report.
Do you have an idea of when you think that might happen?
Ask me again after I go through the next 2 pages.
Just a question for that, regarding a finalized report. So, like, for example, one of the things we looked at is the, kind of the item C, where we looked at, not the effects, no, not item C, the comparison, yeah, I guess it is item C, the comparison of what we have versus, what, kind of a new
MSBA.
school would require. And we have those numbers, but I don't recall, like, for example, that had been discussed, and we have some comparisons and some charts, but we never pulled any of that stuff into the interim report,
No.
to my recollection.
No, what we did was, Michael first presented that to us in August of 14? 14. And what we looked at was just a gross number. If we were going to build this same school, brand new, how much bigger would it be?
For
That-
guidance and this and that and the whole nine
That's
yards.
right.
Yep.
And then this past August, we went back and looked at that again, and what we looked at was, we specifically did guidance, but it was, given that the whole school has a smaller footprint than a brand-new school would, is the amount of space dedicated to guidance similar to what it would be if it were a brand-new school built to MSBA specifications? And I think we came back with, it's within 1%. I think, Neshoba was 14% and MSBA was 15% of total space or something like that. We were very close.
It was the configuration that's not...
That's the
not
big issue,
yeah.
yeah. It's the way it's spread out and,
What if we moved it somewhere else and reconfigured and it might work?
and that's not to say that guidance has plenty of space. All that says is their share of Neshoba High School is the same as it would be if we were going to build brand new.
They'd have the same square footage.
No, they'd have less square footage, but the same percentage of total square footage,
They'd have less square footage.
right?
I thought it was more square footage, but the same percentage. If we said, let's build it to MSBA.
If we built, yes, if we were to build it brand new, it'd be the same percentage but more square feet, yes.
But
Yes,
only about 1% more.
right.
Okay. So it'd be a little bit larger, but not much.
So
No, it'd be much larger.
1%? Just for guidance?
It would be, overall, I think they would have 30 or 33% more space.
It would, okay.
But they'd only have, but the whole school would be 33% larger also. So their
Oh,
percentage
I
of,
understood you.
their
All right.
percentage of total space stays the same,
Yep,
even though they would get a lot more space.
okay.
But it might mean they don't have a room for more private conferences, or when colleges come on campus, or all those other things that were discussed.
We didn't discuss how to allocate that additional space. So you would hope that they would with that additional space. I remember one of the other things that came out was overall, inside the school, athletic facilities. Athletic facilities actually get more space, but their percentage of the total space declines dramatically. That was an interesting contradiction when we did that comparison. But because we'd be adding, all the growth would be in classrooms. And even though there was one, they picked up like a couple hundred square feet somewhere, so they get a little more space, but it shrinks as a total profile of the overall.
So right
As
now
a
they've got
percentage.
more than their fair share of the square footage footprint.
Yes, yes.
So that's, I just wasn't at that meeting, so I guess I was not,
Okay.
when some of the statements were said, it seemed different, counter to at least the previous discussions that I was here for,
Right.
so kind of,
Okay. So the next thing I would just like to address quickly is the NEASC report. I went through the NEASC report and I pulled out the space-related issues. We've addressed most of them. The two areas that we didn't address are ensuring privacy for students using the health services. And as I mentioned before, there's nothing in the body of the report that really explains that. But you had a...
Yeah, I mean, our health office, essentially, they are not closed rooms. So if you walk in, you could look to your left and see students on the carts and so forth, on the cots, not carts, on the cots, in two different sections. There, you know, when you look, if you go to Mary Rowlandson and Luther Burbank and you look at, or the Center School, or even Hale, for example, if you looked at their, all of them have larger medical suites than the high school does.
Is the demand for a larger suite there? Do they use it?
At our high school? Huge.
And NEASC said it was the students that were complaining about
Yeah.
lack of privacy.
Yeah, I think they only have 2 cots. They have 2 cots and an exam space at the high school. I would say.
That room is always packed.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have 4 or 5 kids at any given moment in that room.
Okay.
In the other area that we didn't address too much is, that was mentioned in the ask, is that the teachers think that the cafeteria size is a problem. Students tend to think students didn't complain about it. But those are the 2 areas that came up on the NEASC report that we did not address anywhere in any of our reports.
It's funny because we've been talking about the cafeteria for forever,
Yeah.
almost as the starting point of an issue.
But the students,
Students are fine with it, yeah.
Yeah, and
but I think now all students have a seat.
That's right.
No one's sitting
No
on the
one's
floor,
complaining
no one's
about it,
sitting on
yeah.
the floor.
right.
But the seats are in the hallway, the seats are, we've had to
No,
be
but-
creative with the
Yeah.
locations, so I could see where the teachers could have an issue with
Supervision.
how everything's spread out in
Yeah.
supervision. With the students, they're just happy to
Yeah, they've
sit with their
adapted.
friends.
They've
Right.
adapted.
Right.
Which brings us to the last page of the Space Needs Task Force. So open action items are, we issued, it's going to be an RFP, not an RFS. The space requirements of the future curriculum, and then the HVAC and mechanical issues, I'm going to add it to the list, which I owe.
Were you adding?
On D here, I've got to write up the report on that. I met with Bill on that back in August or July or something. I haven't written it up, so I got to do that. So just for sake of conversation, are there, okay, so for the sake of conversation, I wrote down things that might be other open issues that we as a committee should address. The cafeteria, future of the media center, health services, can changes to scheduling practices reduce effects of overcrowding on the students? I don't know if there's anything else we should be addressing.
I'm sorry, can you say that one again?
Can changes to scheduling practices reduce effects of overcrowding on students?
No, that was something Sarah was going to work on. Did you want to add that Perry is going to be making up a list of utilization?
Okay.
Mark, when he writes the utilization, does that solve what we're trying to look for?
One, it's,
What Perry was first asked for was just how many more classrooms do you
To get to
need
85%.
to get to 85%?
But,
And then Mark kind of tipped that on its head.
or no, actually Perry did, because Perry said that, specialized classrooms, science is a different, so like science is up at 93%, but general use is like at 86%. So they were all different, so he was gonna mark those out. And yeah, Mark zoomed in on the specialized classes.
Okay. I thought he was
But it's-
asking for utilization of all the classes.
yeah, I'd be
He's gonna
interested
do
in
it by
just the
department.
population of all the sections, just
Yeah.
to,
Right.
so it's- when the question comes, which it will, the selectmen have already said so, in my town, how many people are in all these classrooms, you know, and I can say,
Oh, so you
so I can say,
actually,
see, they're all full. Look at
so you
this
don't want
list.
just percentage, you actually want the numbers in the classroom.
Yeah, that if we're
Well,
complaining
what-
that
what are the
population
s-
is high.
What are the selectmen going to do with that information?
Well,
Oh, back
if
to
all
the
the
question you
classrooms had,
asked.
for example, hypothetically, 15 people in it, they could say, look, you're offering too many classes, we want you, your school committee, to think about your curriculum.
I find it hard to believe the selectmen would.
There's
I mean,
one of-
15 students per classroom
I'm not
would be
saying,
a
I'm
great
saying,
teaching ratio.
I'm saying hypothetically that would be a consequence. I say here, look, proof that the population is different than you might imagine.
But we're back to the question that you had. Excuse me, about, you know, are the classes full? You know, and he said that there were two instances where he likes to keep them small, and that was the math enrichment class and another one,
Photography.
Sure.
photography. He likes to keep them
Right.
at 15 because of the equipment. So those
Well,
we,
That's not like a like, because it's a need, because if you don't have enough equipment, then.
Yeah.
Right.
well,
I think that report that
that's-
Karen does could have a
but
number.
math could be larger, but the math enrichment, math something.
It's called math
Foundations.
foundations.
Math foundations, they want to keep that smaller because those are the kids coming up that aren't quite meeting the
Well, they want the
standard.
high teacher ratio there.
For that one, right, to
Right.
bring them all up to speed.
Yeah.
But those are one-offs for very
Right, versus
specific
the-
classes versus.
That's one section.
Population.
Yeah.
I think you're.
But that's not one section, there's two teachers now.
There are two teachers in the same class, right? You only have one section of math foundations? Am I wrong about
We
that?
have two sections of math foundations
two.
that meet every other day.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we have two sections that meet every other day, so that takes up one class worth of teaching load.
gotcha.
How many teachers are in the classroom?
Regular education teacher and a special education teacher.
Okay, so there are two.
Oh. I'm not sure if there's a special education teacher in there both times. I think there is.
Okay.
So, okay.
So how many I mean, does that meet every, I guess I don't know how to ask this, is that like a regular class? You know, so you would have it, you know,
How
so
many
many
points
credits?
is that class?
Yeah,
2 credits,
so
because
it's
it meets every other day for the year.
every other day for the year,
That does not
but only one
count.
period.
Correct, and that does not count towards their math graduation requirement. They take that in addition to their math classes.
And that's considered an elective, like a.
Yeah, it's essentially
like
considered
special-
an elective, yep.
So it counts toward the 90 points.
But not towards the
The math.
the 12 math credits.
Okay.
16 credits.
16 math credits.
So,
So on the topic of just sort of other oddball things, I feel like the issues you have with having a space for students to meet for whether counseling or other occasions where you're giving it the conference room, I'm not sure we've really made any particular evaluation of what in the world to do about that. And likewise, the complaint that the guidance has about their lack of space, I'm not sure we've made any particular point of view about that. And we haven't decided, yes, we're going to have point of view or not going to have point of view about it. I feel like I've heard them enough that they seem to be significant to us.
If I understand you correctly, the one we had no objective criteria, and it was anecdotal, that was for teacher collaboration, administrative tasks, and professional tasks.
right.
But you're talking about guidance, and Jody had talked about the fact that there is a need for quiet spaces and some other kind of spaces that is not accounted for in MSBA, but the need has been growing.
MSBA may have that in their spreadsheet
Now?
as well, as identified spaces. But for, like, guidance counselors have their offices where they can meet with students, but other kind of small space where an adult can be meeting with a student or a small group of students, we definitely become constrained around that. One just concrete example is we have an agreement with an outside counselor who comes and provides counseling on site, and that's something that parents pay, so it's like paid counseling. But obviously, sometimes transportation is a barrier for parents to have their child receive outside counseling. So we have an arrangement with an outside counselor where they come and they're available to provide counseling on site. So she's on campus, I think, this year, maybe 2 days a week to provide counseling. And it's constantly a shuffle of whose office is she going to kick a person out of, so she can, it might be me, it might be an assistant principal, it might be a guidance counselor, but we don't have like space for that to happen.
There, yeah, I don't know where it is on the MSBA spreadsheets, but having visited the new Concord School, which was built with, partially with MSBA money, when you walk in, the first thing they just have these carrels right in front of you, these little rooms that they refer to as the Commons. And it's a little bigger than this room, but it's split up into areas that have a table in it with a couple chairs around each table, and students can meet there, faculty can meet there. They have, it's glass walls, so you know it's not soundproof, but you're not going to be two people speaking in one area are not going to be talking over. It's not like an open space plan in an office. In their guidance area, there's just a huge row of offices on either side of a narrow hallway. I assume it was for not only guidance counselors, but some of these other needs that they have also. So somewhere in the numbers, it's there. Now the advantage Concord Carlisle had is it was a brand new school. They didn't have to move walls or take existing walls into account. So I don't think we have an answer to it, but I think one of the things we have to one of the things we need to get to, and maybe this is where we start next time we meet, is write down the issues and start putting them into the categories of priority. What must we do? What's a nice to have, and and start that.
I think that's a great idea.
I think
We'll feel concrete there.
we keep coming back to that, so we might as well get going to it. And also we'll have one thing off to the side that says this is for the next committee to deal with. We'll keep track of it that way. But can anybody else think of any other open issues that we need to dive in on right here in the next few weeks or the next couple of months?
This isn't a new one, but Perry, lay out the list of classrooms and
Does that
utilization.
get captured?
Mark needed the number of students per classroom.
And that's also captured.
Like how many we can physically fit into a classroom.
How many are actually in it currently? So if you have like the math enrichment class, you can only have 16. So do you have 16? In the 24 classes, do you have 24 in class?
Right, so I can give you average class sizes, and I can give some ranges around X percent of these classes are 23 or more kids,
Right,
that sort of thing.
Because he's
Would it
having
have the limitations on that class so that it says 16, and you appreciate that 16 might not sound like a lot, but that's maxed out for a particular class.
So
right.
So the question I know I will get and trying to respond to with your help is people who say, are all the classrooms that have relatively full or on average full population? And I can say, yes, here's the information that the principals provided saying all sections are, whatever the statistic is, in 90 or 85% or 110% full.
So it'll be-
on many of the sections.
it's a little bit gray because, for example, math foundations, which I think we cap at like 16
Sure,
students,
understanding is very.
is in the same room as a class that might have 25 students.
Right.
Are both of those classes full? Yes, because we've arbitrarily set some sort of a cap based on how many kids we
But
want
you
to
would
have.
have 16, and if there's 16 kids in there, you've got 100% utilization, even though the room can take more.
Right.
Right.
It's 16.
But I think.
But I mean, if you
the
have
answer
5 kids
to
in there,
that-
you got
that
100%
question-
utilization. I mean, the room is being utilized. You can't use just part of a room.
Right, but but the question is, you've got a cap of math
you add
foundations
more
at
students?
16. But if you only have 5, and you can have 16, then you only have 30% utilization.
Right. I wouldn't say it's 30% utilization of the space. I would say we haven't fully booked the class. Or we could potentially have that class in a different space that doesn't require, it requires smaller space. I mean, I think I understand what you're looking at,
Yeah,
so.
but it's not a facility issue, it's really a programming
Correct.
decision.
But I think the answer is simpler than all this detail, because hasn't the school committee made a statement that, you know, they want, that the target class size is 20?
24.
The target class size is 24, or the maximum is 24?
The range for the class sizes is 20 to 24 at the high school.
Okay.
And and they might go over, because they might be able to fit 25 or 26.
So
But
I
if they won't-
think what you need then is just, you know, how many classes are in that 20 to 24?
Yep.
You don't need to know that there's 4 English classes and one of them's got 26 and one's got, you know, 23 and one's got 22. I think you just need to step back and say, look, here's the target, here's, you know, the school committee said between 20 and 24, and this is the number that are in that range. Here's the number of classes that are above it. Here's the number of classes that are below it,
Here's the
and here's why.
I do think that if we kind of, I mean, I think the people here appreciate and understand what the difference between the 85 or the 90+% utilization. But when we come out with this stuff, particularly when we share it with, you know, kind of the public or with selectmen or kind of what have you, I think we do need, without getting into all the gory details, a couple sentences that kind of explain, you know, that, you know, 90-something% utilization is very high, and it's very high because of all the variables that go into the schedule that, you know, because someone could look at it, like we've discussed before, and say, great, you got 7% more, yeah, like, you got more room to shove people in there, and you really don't.
I had that conversation with my selectmen when I was, you know, talking with them about the second interim report. Exactly that question said, you're at 95, you've got lots of room. I said, no, you don't. You can't run a school with 95%, and here's why. So the question is going to come back to me again whenever, you know, I talk about selectmen about that stuff.
So if we do a table or a summary, I think that needs to be part of it, is explaining the 85% and the 90+% and what that really means in a few sentences without kind of getting into a huge discussion.
Put that
And it
in.
might help to say what utilization you're at before you put in the mobile class. Only because that did bring it down a little bit.
It'd be interesting what the utilization is without the mobile classrooms. I could do that.
You'd have another 50
Above
students in study halls.
And
wouldn't
don't
you?
forget to thank the towns.
Yeah, we can still cram the kids into classes.
Oh, all right.
It means that then it would have affected the way the schedule played out, because
You wouldn't
We would have
have,
extinguished some sections in
right,
order
if
to.
you've only
make
got
things
one
happen.
classroom available one period, I would have had to have done something
Right.
different. Right.
So, you know, going down the next steps, we looked at interim report 1, interim report 2. We haven't looked at all about the MSBA SOI process.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
right.
if we want to.
Oh, absolutely.
What should our final report look like? Ideas I had were it should prioritize the space needs, highlight the infrastructure needs, identify the goals, and perhaps even a charter for a successor group, and perhaps it has some specific recommendations that, for the school committee to take for next steps. So that's high-level stuff. You know, the point of this page is just to get people thinking about what's the final report going to look like, and what do we have to do to declare victory, as I like to say, and wrap this up. You know, it seems to me that we could wrap this up by Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Well, would you have the recommendation from the RFP?
No, I don't think we would have the results of the enrollment study by that point, but I don't know that would greatly, it may change the magnitude of our suggested changes to the high school. I don't think it's going to add any.
But you still have to make the recommendation. So you can't disband before that
I have to make a recommendation.
to the school committee.
About what?
The RFP.
Oh,
Oh.
we'll have that before.
Well, yes, we'll have the
Oh,
selection
John's.
process done before.
Okay.
We won't have the results of the study back by Christmas.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but I think that understanding the MSBA SOI
Could if we're
process,
standard, if we're
I
more in a standard
I
form.
think that we probably want to look into a little bit.
Okay. Is it possible to get someone from the MSBA to come in here and talk to us? Do you want to make that call, or should I make that call?
Yeah,
or-
I'll make that call. Yeah.
Okay.
I know people that-
And see if they can come to the October meeting, or if not, I guess the other question is, Michael's recommended another meeting schedule out through December. And on my calendar, that's fine, that would be October 14th, November 10th, and November 9th.
October
Whoa,
14th.
what was, in December 9th?
December 9th.
December 9th.
October 14th, you said November
10th, which is a Tuesday night.
10th.
It's because the 11th is Veterans Day.
On December 9th.
And what was the other one?
December 9th?
December 9th.
I know the 14th isn't good for me.
Did you get answers for people for that week
Not,
mostly?
not
or-
complete. I did get here from Dave. Yeah, it's a mixed bag for the 14th, I know, of the people that responded.
Because it was the 14th or 15th
It
that
was
was
the 14th to the 15th, but Bob has a problem with the 15th.
Well, my problem is that there's a high school soccer game that night, and since my son's on the team, I want to
That's a good
go.
problem.
Well, yeah, but, you know, if that's the only time we can get a quorum, he'll understand.
Oh,
No,
no.
no.
I mean, there's time of day too, if that works better for people.
Well,
I mean, if there's a different time,
Is like the
there-
13th, like
Yeah, I was gonna
is there
say.
like a, is there,
I can't do the 13th. We have policy, personnel, and we have personnel that
I
night.
don't know that one.
I might be able
On
to do
Tuesday?
it.
That's Columbus Day is the Monday.
The 14th is a, we're talking about October 14th? So that's
13th.
That's a Wednesday?
Correct.
Well, how much do you have on the agenda? We pretty much have to go over this again to vote
We'll
on.
be starting to draft something pretty soon, or at least having major ideas for a
Yeah.
draft.
We also have
Yeah.
to go over these again.
Well,
Right.
to vote.
but I think all the argumentative people are here tonight.
Okay.
So I think we'll,
But if you're looking at October for the
13th might work.
MSBA,
Who can do the 13th?
that might take
I
some
can do
time.
the 13th.
Who could do the 13th?
I can do the
I
13th.
can do the 13th.
You do the 13th?
I currently have nothing to do.
That is a class date, right?
How about Kathy Codian? Is she, do you have a list of
Yeah.
responses?
I didn't ask for the 13th, so I don't know.
Yeah. And is that, when is a holiday for Columbus Day? Is that
It's the 12th.
12th.
12th? I see.
So we doing the
So the
13th?
13th might work. Want to look at the 13th instead?
I'll do the 13th.
We can, that way Dave. All right, let's look at the 13th then. Thank you.
You said the 13th, right?
13th.
Okay.
And what was the December date?
9th?
All things considered, I prefer either a Thursday or Tuesday in December. But, it's far enough away so I can maneuver another meeting away.
So December 9th, I have a issue because we've historically been meeting on Thursdays, which were fine, and now we've shifted, I don't know, during the summer and stuff to Wednesdays, which didn't really make a difference, but some Wednesdays cause problems for me.
I could do the 10th.
That's Thursday.
Yeah. I could do the 10th or the 8th.
Same thing with me. 8th to the 10th is fine.
This is
We're talking
December,
about
right?
December?
Yeah.
December, right.
I could do the 8th or the 10th. So, you want, you can't do the 8th, right?
The Tuesdays are tough for me, but
Tuesday's tough.
I can make something work.
What about the 10th? So is the 10th work for folks?
Yes, for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, let's do December 10th then.
Thank you.
So it's now October 13th, November 10th, and December 10th?
Right.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is the tri-town typically on a Wednesday? Is that
Typically.
routine?
Do they have a calendar yet?
I haven't seen what I think.
They don't have a calendar.
So just,
Tri-town is just when's the next meeting.
okay. So what day are we trying to get the MSBA in?
All in.
October, November,
I'll look
December?
at all 3 dates and see what
And
we
yeah,
can do.
whenever they can,
Okay.
whenever they can come. And, you know, the next time we meet, we will certainly start listing the issues and putting them in the categories, and that'll be fun.
So would it be helpful if we reviewed the SOI that went out for center school? It's kind of large and cumbersome, it wasn't real direct.
You may want to look at that one. The other one that was available online was the SOI for the Townsend School.
Townsend, okay.
Townsend's
What did they do?
North Middlesex, they're building a brand-new school. Was it 140 million?
Oh, I think so.
140
No.
million?
I think it's like 81.
That's all?
I think so.
I thought it was way more than the Concord Carlisle School for some reason.
Yeah, it's online. Do you have to go to Townsend or do you go to MSBA?
The MSBA. You know, my reaction to having read a couple of those is we've already put more detail down than they asked for.
Yeah, but we're more, I took it that we're trying to make it so that we have backup and to say, you know, to tell the townspeople, okay, here's the need. You know, and these are the options. Well, we don't have any options yet, that's up to the MSBA,
But these are high-level documents, is the way I would
okay.
refer to them as.
Okay, so I guess,
Townsend was one I read,
so I have a question
and
about,
the science one I
so Townsend is at 80-something million. Is there any way to talk to somebody in the towns to find out if they have the stomach for a new building?
read. In our towns,
Yeah.
I don't have the stomach to ask that question.
You know, I'm just wondering what the limitations are. I mean, I'm willing to work around limitations, I just don't know, because I know Stowe's hurting.
Yeah, you know, and I've got to say that anybody I talk to, you know, and this is my personal opinion, I just simply don't see the need for a brand new school. I see the need for modifying what we have, particularly in the science labs. But you know, I'd scare people if I started going back and asking, what do you think about a new school? Because it'd be completely different than the message I've been given.
Okay.
But are you saying your thoughts are that a renovation within the existing footprint and square footage
No,
is doable?
no,
Or that
no.
an addition or?
No, it's, you know, in my ideal world, we would build a new science classrooms and renovate the existing labs into general purpose classrooms. That's my ideal world.
So you,
Now, you know, that doesn't touch upon the cafeteria, that doesn't touch upon the nurse's office, it doesn't touch upon the HVAC and all that other stuff. But just at a high level, that's
it supports
that's the
students.
simplest solution to me, but I'm not, you know, I'm going forward with that image in my head, but that doesn't mean that that image is locked in concrete. Although the rest of my head may be, but you know, that's kind of my operative, but it's my operative assumption.
There's a need for at least additional square footage.
Yes.
in the-
Yes, the footprint of the current building is too small, and there's no reason to think we can build up anywhere.
I would agree with that.
So that means you've got to lay out, you know, new footings and foundations and build from there.
And it's actually the cleanest, because you could have separate utilities, because right now, if you start messing with those utilities, then you get to touch the whole building.
We could also possibly be building and still having school
I don't-
session.
Well, that's the
But
other
it's, if it's
wrinkle.
standalone, because that's what happened last time when they did the renovation. They, from my understanding, they stopped construction and they just said, just get out of here, because it was just too intrusive. They couldn't have classes. So that's why a lot of the stuff was incomplete.
Just remember, MSBA does not subsidize classrooms, any extra busing,
Yeah.
any renting of space that you need for,
Additional
you know,
teachers.
additional teachers. They don't subsidize
Additional
any of
parking.
that stuff. It's all borne entirely by the school district. They will subsidize the building, but that's it. They will help subsidize the building, but that's it. So, that's all I got. We ready to go?
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.